You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Bermondsey. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to an impromptu edition of Achtung Mill. Joining me for this special edition, I suppose you call it, is my confederate, Mr. Neil Fissler. How are you doing, Neil?
Yeah, not too bad, Nick. Not too bad. On a pretty sad day to be a Millwall fan today.
Yeah, slightly downbeat tone, certainly to start us off with, listeners. My eye was caught by a post that you made, actually, Neil. Some sad news. One of my favourite ever Millwall players, and I don't say that lightly, Phil Walker has sadly passed away. Hero of the mid-70s of the third division promotion season, 75-76. And a really nice bloke, Neil. I had the pleasure to speak to Phil a couple of years ago, I think, now on this show. I did an interview with him. And he's a really humble, really lovely bloke to talk to. You know, it's very sad news today.
Yeah, mate, when I got in contact with Phil probably about 10 years ago, even more than that, I was helping Chris Bethel find players for Dockers Day, and I wanted to find Trevor Lee when we were first planning the Who's Who book. To find out what had happened to him, and he didn't know, but he was a genuinely lovely guy. I just phoned him up out of the blue, introduced myself, said what I was doing, and we got chatting. And there's one thing that struck me. You have a look through social media. He followed me on social media like you. He probably followed you on social media, and he just struck me as what an accessible guy he was. Always happy to engage with people that remembered him, people that took time to remember him. And he seemed humbled that people remembered what he did nearly 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable that all of a sudden he's gone, and it's the measure of the man of the outpouring of grief, for the want of a better word, that has come from Millwall fans of a certain vintage today. You look at Twitter, Hoff, Facebook, and there's people that my age, your age, and they're genuinely upset that this guy has actually died at 67, which is no age at all.
No, very young. I mean, I did an interview. I think it was when the lockdown started. We started doing a few old player interviews, and I mean, I know you do this kind of thing for a living, Neil. But I for me, every time I interview a player, I'm always ever so slightly starstruck. But I was especially starstruck with Phil Walker and Trevor Lee, because they were both memorable figures of a very, very memorable season for me personally. I started going in 72, as I've said a few times on this show. And it was a fairly tough time to be a Millwall fan, those early 70s years, because we were kind of in a period of decline, and had fallen into the third division. And the 75 season began fairly moderately, in truth, in playing Division 3 football. But then the season turned, because we signed these two black players, which still at this time, it was a slightly unusual thing in football. I mean, this was the nature of the times, and both of them came in from non-league. They'd come in from Epsom and Ewell. You wouldn't do this now, Neil. You wouldn't kind of sign two players from the same non-league side and field them immediately. And I remember both of their first game. I think Phil Walker scored in the game against Mansfield in early October 75, and it was like this. The season had transformed. It's happened a few times in Millwall's history in my time, but you know, these players came in from nowhere. They were different. They played with freedom and a kind of I don't know, an energy, I suppose. Phil was a very skillful midfielder. Trevor was Paul Ifill reminded me of him a lot, in that he had an ability to produce chances and situations out of nothing. I think Phil was probably a more conventional, highly skilled midfielder. But they just changed their season. They turned it around, and that season, 75-76, and those two players, Phil Walker and Trevor Lee, live in my mind. I mean, I was just saying on a WhatsApp message before we started recording to someone else that it will be a season that I will forever remember, because it made such an impact. It was the first successful season I'd known as a Millwall fan. And Phil Walker and Trevor, but Phil Walker was an integral part of that transformed season, and we got promoted in the end. It was a wonderful, wonderful campaign. And it's just so sad, isn't it? I mean, I suppose you reach an age where your heroes start to, you see it in music, film, TV, and all sorts of areas. But people that were your heroes when you were young start to fall away slightly, and this one does seem to have struck a real chord with a lot of Millwall fans out there. He was such a well-loved player.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was a time in Millwall's history when we didn't have an awful lot of money.
We had no money. No, well, two players from Epsom.
Surprise, Millwall didn't have money. We had to spend it well. I think it was Gordon Jago. Was it Gordon Jago?
Jago signed them, yeah.
Signed them. And they were part of a very successful Epsom and Yule side. I think they got to the FA Vals final.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Before we signed them. So there was no money at Millwall, so they had to make signings that they knew were going to make a difference. There was no gambling, was there? It's not like
no.
Spend a couple of million quid on a player, and he has to be a player that's going to make a difference. And it was like that at the time. He gambled, I guess, bought them in and reaped the rewards of it. And you're right, it wasn't a successful time in Millwall's history, because we had that near promotion miss in that season that you don't like talking about and that you mentioned. And it was a steady decline. And then Gordon Jago came in this season, arrested that decline.
Turned us around. It was a successful season. We got promoted in the end, 75-76. But it was an entertaining period. We have these little periods in Mill history, Neil, don't we, where we play great attacking football. We have personality players, and for a brief period, you remember these moments. I'm thinking now of 1988, of course, and the early 2000s, the promotion season, and there've been others over time. But this season, 76, I suppose, would have been the 15-16 at that time. And it becomes the reason why you love football, because for a brief period, your life is illuminated by some great attacking play, some great results, success, of course. But more than that, really, you're just seeing players that will live with you for the rest of your days, and you think across your whole Millwall life, you can name those players in your own head, the ones that really made an impact on you when you were young. And that was Phil Walker for me, with his partner Trevor Lee on the wing, and these were great days. 1954 to now 2022, Philip Leonardus Walker, 167 games from 75 to 79, 22 goals. He would go on to play for Charlton after he left Mill. We had to let him go, I think. Finances were creeping up on us, Neil, as you've said already. Well, when is that never so? And he played briefly for Gillingham. And then he would travel the world. He played in Hong Kong, just reading from your book here, actually, Hong Kong, and then Boa Vista in Portugal. I think he made a bit of a life out there. I think he coached out there and lived out there for a while. But a great Millwall player, and one that lives long in the memory.
There was actually as well. I think that people were talking about a goal against Charlton in '79 earlier on.
Yes, I was there at the Valley. Millwall being Millwall, I mean, this was in the era younger listeners might not realise what used to happen, but it was a big thing to occupy the home end. So the covered end at Charlton was the Charlton end, but it was a midweek game, occupied entirely by Mill fans, as is the way of these things. And there was a breakaway goal. I think we won the game 4-2. It was an entertaining local derby. And I think Phil scored a breakaway goal from midfield, scoring at the far end, the open end, is now the away end, I think, away from where we were standing. And it was just one of those big, entertaining, big Millwall moments where everything went right in your life. And one of your best players scored a brilliant goal at they're not our rivals, are they? But it's always great to go to Charlton and win. And that was a wonderful, wonderful night.
Yeah, no, they live in our shadow. They always have done, and they always will do.
So there we are. Sad news, Phil Walker, R.I.P. There we are. Just as I say, we've put this show together quite in a quite an unstructured way, listeners. I just wanted to really pay tribute to Phil's legacy. I'll put this show out. There's a great photo I found in one of the Daily Mirrors when they first signed Trevor and Phil. There's a great picture of them mucking about on the training ground, and I'll stick that out with the show when I post it on social media. Two wonderful, wonderful players.
Achtung, Millwall.
So yeah, just to move along, Neil, we thought we might run through some of the more current Millwall notes on the South London Press website. I was just about to open up with the first story when up pops a advert for Ukrainian women, and I thought that's not a Millwall story at all. I was just trying to scroll down swiftly to talk about tomorrow's friendly game at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, what website did you say that was on, Nick?
I think they tailor it to whatever your viewing habits are. So I don't know what it's speaking about me, listeners. They have one of those personalised adverts on there, so God help me. Moving swiftly along from the Ukrainian women, Millwall's new signings all set to get 45 minutes of action against Crystal Palace tomorrow. Now, I've broken the habit of a lifetime. I've broken my fundamental command, which is Nick shall not watch friendly football, and I've actually signed up for the £5 to watch the stream of it tomorrow on Mill TV. So hopefully we'll get a sight of the new boys in this behind closed doors friendly tomorrow at Crystal Palace. Bit of a workout it'll be as a starting point for the season, really, won't it? Hopefully no one will get injured. I think that's always my main priority, friendly football.
Yeah, but I think that's why they're probably only giving them 45 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does get injured, but let's be honest, it's not about the result in pre-season friendlies. It's all about the fitness. I see people complaining, Crystal Palace behind closed doors, but it probably isn't about anything other than getting some meters or yards in the legs.
Yep.
And preparing for the season that starts in 3-4 weeks.
About 3 weeks-ish now, isn't it, to the first game of the season? You're right. I mean, it's like a gym workout, really. I mean, it's akin to, just building your fitness in essence. And obviously, there's a chance to have a look at some of these players. I mean, obviously, we're looking at, just to run through them, Charlie Cresswell, the new Leeds centre-back, who has been giving some great interviews on the Recast channel. But he does seem like he's a solid boy, this kid. I mean, he's only going to be here for the season now. He's a Leeds player, but an England under-21 international, but he sounds like he likes to get stuck in. That's going to go down the storm with the Millwall faithful, I think.
Yeah, a couple of my followers on Twitter from up north, rugby fans, Leeds fans.
Yeah.
And one of them said, he is coming back. I said, yeah, well, he'll be coming back as a man. We're going to do to him what we did to Harry Kane. We're going to turn him into a man. But I think there was a feeling that Leeds had actually let us have their best defender.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen those comments. I mean, I've become intrigued. There's another story doing the rounds. Obviously, Cresswell is on loan for us for the season, and I found the other. I mean, it's a second-tier podcast, listeners, so maybe clickbait. I don't know. But they've put a story out now that we've agreed to sign another loan from Leeds, Jamie Shackleton. Apparently, he's got Premier League experience, goal scoring.
Kai had that store. Kai Bennett had the I think it was from. I think it was from one of these. I never believe anything you read from some of these people. Yeah, I'm not saying Kai, but some of these clickbait.
No, but I'm wary of it. I like the story and I like the sound of the possibility, and I'm kind of half enjoying, half intrigued by this new love affair with Leeds that we've got.
Yeah, but it sounds about true. I think that obviously Cresswell's old man, Richard Cresswell, played Ipswich, and I think was a teammate of Gary Rowett's at Leicester.
Yeah.
So that's a good signing, but we do need. What slightly worries me about this one is the fact that it's another central midfielder. I don't know how many central midfielders we actually need, but he can cover right back. And I know we're going to talk about the ludicrously low insult from Queen's Park Rangers, but I hope he's not a replacement and that he is somebody who will challenge rather than replace.
This is for Danny Mack listeners. Wonderful story. I mean, I don't know if I hope it's true or not. I partly do believe it. That QPR that allegedly made a £300,000 offer for Danny Mack. I mean, that's not 3 million, listeners. There is a missing zero from that figure there, 300,000. I mean, it feels a bit like you've gone in for Lionel Messi, and offered a £25,000 plus a subscription at the Curry Den or something. It's that level of insult, isn't it? Really, that figure in modern football.
Mate, it's a Millwall bid, that isn't it? I know that we were throwing around some ridiculously low bids in January for players, weren't we?
That's right.
And we tried it with that Aberdeen player, didn't we? They rejected £4 million last year, so we offered £1.5 million back this year.
And then we're surprised and outraged when we don't get the name. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how true that is. I mean, you, as you said already, clickbait accounts dominate social media, so I don't know. Interesting story.
So, Nick, because it seems to have gathered momentum, and I think it was Richard Cowley tweeted that Millwall had turned down a second offer, and this one was 300,000. God knows what the first offer was.
150. I mean, linked in with this is that Danny Mack is in contract extension talks. The South London Press, London News Online reports. I mean, Richard Cowley says the 23-year-old Lions right back had been linked with QPR. I don't know about that kind of price level, but who can say?
Halting offer. I can't see. Probably actually Millwall of old might actually have accepted it, but he's a good young player. Allegedly only has a year left on his contract. It doesn't help when clubs don't release the length of contracts, and they do that because they don't want to alert people to how long people have been on the contract. But what they don't take into the equation is agents are doing it anyway. So you might as well be out in the open and say how long the contract is, because allegedly he signed an extension when he came back from St Johnstone, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I were Danny Mack, if I had his talent. He's at a bit of an important period in his career. I'm just seeing 23-year-old Lions right back. So 23. He's at a point where you do need to think fairly soon about just how high a level could I play at? And he must be thinking that he's got the potential to be a Premier League player. It's the Jed Wallace syndrome all over again, isn't it? I mean, where's he best placed to achieve that level of football? Is it Millwall? Is it? I can't believe QPR have any better prospects of Premier League football than we do. In truth,
no, QPR, they're one of those clubs. They throw out a lot of money and they spend a lot on wages, but they don't ever seem to get anywhere. They're one of those pointless little clubs. Really. Yeah, know that we're a small club, but they have ideas of grandeur and
They live on the past. I mean, I don't blame a player ever. I didn't blame Jed. I wouldn't blame Danny Mack if he's got his career aims in mind as to what level he wants to play at. Whether he can achieve that or not, who knows? I think he's played internationally, Neil, hasn't he? So he must think in those terms. Be unambitious not to. QPR doesn't add up. It doesn't wash for me as a means of getting there. I suppose he's going to be at the moment in the syndrome as to whether Millwall offers a good. I mean, the vibe around the club. I mean, I feel genuinely optimistic, and that's after 51 years of following the Lions, I've allowed myself the luxury of optimism. I mean, I wonder whether that permeates through the squad at the moment.
Yeah, I think that this isn't even a sideways move, is it? It's a kind of
It's a slight downward level, isn't it? Yeah,
because they're not any better than us.
no.
I would like to think that the agent's trying to pile on a bit of pressure onto Steve Kavanagh, Olgo, whoever takes care of Millwall's contract situation these days. Talk up this, encourage a couple of offers, and then all of a sudden Millwall will come a little bit closer to what you're asking. I think in the plus points he's a Millwall fan.
Yes. Yeah.
If it was a Premier League club, you could understand him leaving. But given that he's a Millwall fan, there's no reason to go to QPR. I think everything the club has done this summer has been geared towards improving how we finished last season, and we only just missed out on the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So it's a strange. It would be a strange move, and a move that wouldn't make sense.
I agree.
So hopefully this has shocked Millwall into a sense of urgency, because I think that if he left, all of the good work that Steve Kavanagh, Gary Rowett and Aldo have done this summer would probably melt away. And that's not an under-exaggeration. You know what Millwall fans are like. We like our players. And to come on the back of almost, I know we discussed this last week, but Lovelace leaving.
Yeah.
But I think that was a different situation. I think that was the parents being tapped up.
Yeah, and to a level you can't really do much about Zach Lovelace. I mean, there are limits as to what the club could do there.
But with this time, it's within their power. That's unless, of course, Danny Mack or his agent, because agents tell players what to do in football these days. It's not the footballer. The agent says, right, no, unfortunately, I get a bigger fee from QPR for moving him. He will double his wages at QPR, so we're off. I'd like to think that isn't the case, and that one day next week there will be one of those reveal videos on
slow motion. Yeah, let's hope so.
A slow motion reveal video of maybe somebody in a Boris Johnson mask tailing off the Jeremy Kyle upper and thrusting a contract into Danny McNamara's hands, and he signs it, and we can move on from this nonsense. I think that every player's got a price.
Yes.
And Danny McNamara will have his price, but it's definitely not 300 grand. I would say it's not even. I think you could add a zero onto that at least.
Well, that's what I would have thought. I know, I'm no football financial accountant, but I would have thought that would be nearer the mark. I would think that must be the self-image that Danny has as well. I mean, who knows? In the end, who knows? But
2.5 million or whatever we paid for Fleming, we've got an idea of how much players cost at the moment, don't we? And, well, we are chucking out bids to people, and yeah, well, I know we're chucking out some Millwall bids.
Well, I mean, we are playing at a certain level. That's I mean that in terms of transfer business wise. I mean, I'm just looking at tomorrow's friendly, Honeyman, Fleming, and Benik Afobe will getting runouts. These have been good players, and we remains to be seen. I'm saying these are good players. It remains to be seen how the season progresses. But the ingredients look good, and for that reason, I make you right. I do think that we're operating with a slightly more sharp business sense than maybe we've got used to in the past with Millwall. I'm hoping that, as you say, that Danny Mack sees it that way and sees that the club have ambitions to, I think, to aim for the top 6. I think that's got to be our realistic ambition for the season, and I think that we're piecing things together. It's quite nice to be able to say it ahead of a season. Obviously, we'll see where we stand 5 o'clock on July the 30th after the Stoke home game. That might be a dose of cold salts or cold water or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. We are building, and we're building slowly. We're not going out and we're not splashing huge amounts of money. We're not signing 6 or 7, 8, 9 players like some clubs are. But we are building something, and I think that it's no longer the Millwall mentality, well, we're just going to survive in this division. That we've actually woken up and we're thinking, yeah, let's finish in the top 6. Let's aim for the top 6, and we will be there or thereabouts this season. I think that every time that there's a piece of bad news at Millwall, the old Millwall mentality of the fans, no ambition and all of that. But I think this summer has proved one thing, that there's a lot of ambition at the club, certainly from Gary Rowett, certainly from John Berylson.
Agreed. Yeah.
Done another fantastic job. And it always makes me laugh that they talk about the fantastic owners in football, and John Berylson doesn't even merit a mention on some of these podcasts. You listen to The Price of Football, and they go on about what a great owner Andy Holt is at Accrington, and
well, he's quite visible. He posts a lot. He puts a personality out there. I think as ever. I mean, listeners won't need us to say it, Neil, but we're only on the radar for one thing, really, aren't we? Good news and good management and good investment. And Millwall is not newsworthy. It's only ever the dark side they want from our club.
they only look for the controversy, but we know what a great chairman we've got, and
absolutely.
I'd like to think that this season some of our crowds are embarrassing. The numbers, and it would just be good to see people
turn out. Yeah, I agree.
Because we can't survive on the crowds that we get.
No, we can't. I mean, obviously the aim is to get into the top 6, which gives us a shot at the big time, and that would change our financial situation. Gary Rowett has signed a new contract, which is quite an interesting move, because I think there's been some of the what should we call them, the Cassandras, are they out there that always want bad news to come about and say I should told you so. I mean, he signed a new. I think that's a big move for the club. He's at our level. He's probably. I mean, I think you've said it in the past. Now, he's probably the best manager we're going to get at our level, given our financial circumstances. And he's to consistently achieve top 10-ish finishes for the Lions in the Championship is no mean achievement.
No, I think that he, unfortunately for him, he took over from an icon, a godlike figure in Neil Harris, and he'll always have that shadow hanging over him. I have been critical of him. I think we've all been critical of him. I think that we like our football played one way down at Millwall. We like attacking 4-4-2. Don't we?
Yeah.
We can't quite get our heads around some of the more
modern styles. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
style. Well, I was going to call it negative five back at home football, but he has been pretty good for this club, and I think we've probably been quite good for him. I think his reputation had been battered by a number of different moves around the country.
Yeah.
And he's come down here and, okay, I don't understand what he says half the time. He speaks in this
sports gibberish type of
is a bullshit that managers come out with. But he seems like he's quite a engaging kind of person. I've never met him.
No, I've never met him. No.
But he comes across with a bit of personality in interviews, and he does pop up on Sky every now and again. I think I've seen him on the Soccer Saturday when we haven't been playing and things like that. So, and he seems to be slowly winning a lot of people around, and the best way to do that is to win games. And I think that run last season has done him a lot of good. Of course, if we don't win the first 3 games this season,
we might be erecting the proverbial gallows in the in the car park. Yeah,
well, H will be going into his normal meltdown, won't he? And
absolutely. Just one last story before we close. I think. I mean, just intriguing. I mean, Huddersfield Town have signed Conor Mahoney. He's found a home. I think it's quite a good move for Conor to get to Huddersfield. I mean, he's a player that's not really featured at the Den, despite, in my opinion, I'm interested to know if you agree, evident talent. The application of that talent seems to be a problem for him. I was thinking if he, he'll find a move, but maybe downwards. But to get to Huddersfield it's a good move for him. Although they've then gone and sacked the manager that made the signing the next day, so I don't know what that says about the club's future next season.
Mate, you have a look on Twitter. He looked absolutely chuffed to be there, didn't he? Seen anybody more miserable in the picture? Yeah, well, maybe. Well, he hadn't ever been to Huddersfield before. And, anybody who's been there would certainly know. It's not. Yeah, but it's not a place on its uppers. But no. To come back to your point and to stop my comedy, I think that there is a player in there.
Yeah, there is.
I think that I've always said it. I said it when I was on other podcasts as well. That you look at his goals and the goals he scored, he'd pick up the ball, beat a couple of players, and fire it in from the edge of the box.
Yeah.
So there was a problem with consistency. There was a problem with injuries. Never kind of built it. If there was any momentum,
he'd let it go, wouldn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, he'd get injured, or he'd get dropped, or somebody else would come into the side. There's definitely a player in there. I think to get a 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd year, he must have Titus Bramble's agent who made him a multi-millionaire on the back of very little talent at all. It just sums up modern football. I'm confident this isn't going to be one that's going to come back and bite us in the bum, although I could be wrong.
Could be wrong there. He seemed to turn it on against Luton for some reason.
Yeah, but it was always in sporadic bursts.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't leave us with any kind of mutual sense of hostility. So he may come back to haunt us. I don't know. We'll see. I wish him well. I liked Conor Mahoney. I agree with everything you said. I think that he clearly has talent. Managers don't tend to like players that don't deliver week in, week out, and I think that's his problem. I don't know how he solves that, where he goes with it in his head, but he's got all of the right elements. He's just got all the right notes. He's got to start playing them in the right order to make it. But I wish him well at Huddersfield, not against us, of course.
Well, it's also quite interesting to note that Huddersfield's new manager is Danny Schofield.
Yeah, there's a name that pops up. Yeah, our Danny, which is interesting. He's clearly making it in the coaching world. And as ever, one man's sacking is another man's opportunity in the world of football.
Achtung, Millwall.
Just to really close us out, I'm just looking at the training ground application. I don't know if you've seen this on the official site. This is the planning application the club have made to relocate the training ground down to West Kingsdown, which is borderlands of Sevenoaks and kind of south of Dartford, near Brands Hatch. Actually, it's quite close to the racing circuit down there. It's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm going to leave aside the rights and wrongs of the training ground at Calmont Road versus this, but it's a pretty big relocation. They're talking about offices down there, the club, almost the club operation itself, including the training facilities, the community trust. Everything's going to be relocated to this place on the edge of Brands Hatch, just on the other side of the M25 junction there. No talk, of course, of the stadium going. In fact, the planning application makes the point that no fans and no the public and the fans won't be anywhere near it. But it's just an interesting relocation. I do wonder whether the club have in mind a long-term relocation away from Bermondsey. I think that would be a heart-rending thing if they decided to do that in search of new markets, which I think must be kicking around the heads of the businessmen that run Millwall Football Club. Because it's a pretty big relocation when you read through the application. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but it's like not quite lock, stock and barrel, but it's a lot of offices and day-by-day operational stuff going down there.
Matt, I'd like to think that this is part of a vision for Millwall, that we need our own training facility, because let's be honest, the current training ground, I think, is owned by one of the universities. Is it owned by
De Savary sold it, didn't he?
Yeah.
He sold it to Oxford University or
Yeah.
one of them. Yeah.
And let's face it, we're probably pretty restricted as to what we can do down there.
I think it's basic. Yeah.
Yeah, you do need proper facilities now. It's no good just having a training, a few dressing rooms, a gym. You need hydrotherapy pools. You need all kinds of stuff, don't you? You need proper sports science gyms and proper training
multi pitches, all sorts of things. I mean, it's all in on the website if anyone wants to look at it. It does look like the modern idea of a training complex when you see the Premier League sides, when you see coverage from their training ground. It looks like that, so that's showing good ambition.
I would like to think it's not the start of a move, but you can never say never, can you? If this, I've always thought at the back of my mind with with the fight for the Den and that the location of the ground, that it's not. It's great to be in London, but you're kind of hampered as to what you can do. And if you can get a fresh site, that seems. But for me, that would be the death of Millwall.
Well, it would be for me, and I know. I mean, I've had a few messages from fans. I won't read them out here, but when this stuff appeared on the website, you can. It's an actual planning application, so these follow standard formats, listeners, and you have to stress the benefits to the locality wherever you're doing. You have to. There's things you have to stress for the council to agree it. So there's a kind of a community benefit section, and they're pretty much stressing the good things that will come to Sevenoaks and Dartford and the area around there from the consequence of this development. And in the end, I mean, I agree. I think it would be a heartbreaking thing if it ever came to that. But I suppose, like any sports enterprise, Neil, you've got to go where you think your audience is, and Bermondsey's changing, isn't it? I was looking at Canada Water. They're talking about changing that, like they did with King's Cross, which once upon a time, younger listeners might be intrigued to know was an awful area. It was crime-ridden, drug-ridden, prostitution-ridden, and now it's gentrified, swish as swish can be. Well, they're talking about doing a similar kind of thing. Not that Canada Water is anywhere near the that level that I've just mentioned there, but the area's changing. Once South Bermondsey changes, do we fit into that? I don't know. I can see the logic of it.
It's interesting, but it would kill it for me. It's bad enough trying to get to bloody Millwall.
Yeah. No. I mean, the travelling down to these parts is not easy.
And for the club that's ever moved, I'm thinking of MK Dons. Are they actually any better off than they are? They've got a nice shiny, but they had a nice shiny stadium. It's probably getting older now.
They always had an upper tier that never got used, didn't they? I don't think they put any seats up there because there wasn't people to fill it,
And then they put seats in there for the Rugby Union World Cup when they hosted some games.
That's right, yeah.
But has that done them any good? No, I don't think it has. There's a significant... Yeah, well, anywhere in London, without getting into too much for history, in East London, everybody your traditional East Londoners moved out to Essex.
Hinterlands, yeah.
Yeah, from southeast London, they kind of went out to Kent, didn't they? And
to these areas, I think that's where the thinking goes. That they're out on the Medway, they're out in the Bexley Heaths and the Dartfords and the Bromleys and all that kind of thing.
The club point to a significant number of our fans will have postcodes in those areas.
Yeah,
but are we going to attract fans? It's a big gamble if we were to move. And, we saw what happened with the fight for the Den.
Yeah.
That once you mobilise Millwall fans and you get people behind it,
it's a big thing. I really hope we don't leave the Bermondsey area. I'm not sentimental. I just think that you belong in certain places, and the Millwall Football Club belongs to that area. And if the idea of relocation to Dartford or to West Kingsdown or to Brands Hatch, or wherever you want to call it, has a superficial logic, but a fundamental loss of identity that I think would be disastrous for us.
No, and I agree with every word you say. I think in sport they want to sanitise things now, and I that there's a school of thought that moving there they would maybe sanitise Millwall to a certain extent. I know it sounds
plenty have tried that over the years, Neil, haven't they? As we've found doing our history shows.
Yeah, and it's never worked.
Never worked.
But I think we're probably getting a bit ahead of ourselves. But it would be a miss of us not to float the idea, because
it's on the website. There's no hint. Let me finish by saying this. There's no hint that that's the aim, but it is a substantial relocation of the club's day-by-day running and sporting facilities to West Kingsdown. No hint of a stadium move, and I hope there never will be. Let's leave it there, maybe in there for now, because I think otherwise we'll be going around in circles on it. But
we'll probably be sending everybody into meltdown.
Huge thank you to Neil Fissler for dropping everything and doing this impromptu show. Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, no problem at all. I was only writing a rugby column, and funnily enough, I phoned a former England coach, and he phoned me back and he says it's never good news when I see your number pop up on my phone.
It's never good news when you get an impromptu Achtung either. I think it might be developing a similar reputation, but there we are. We wanted to mark the passing of Phil Walker, and hopefully we've done that properly today. Big thank you, Neil. Thank you to you too, dear listeners. We'll be back very, very soon. Another edition of Achtung Millwall.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall.